shelter. Simple life. It's all we want to live. Give me food, give me clothes, give me love, and give me shelter. Yeah.
Good evening, family. Good morning to some, and good day to all Liberians tuning in from every corner of the globe. Welcome to another powerful edition of the We2r Liberians Movement Podcast, the platform where we don't just talk, we build, where we don't just imagine, we reimagine. Tonight's episode is more than a discussion. It's a call to conscience, a call to culture, a call to rebuild Liberia's future from the soul outward. Our theme, reimagining or reimaging Liberia's educational system, building culture, tradition, and global competence. As we all know, this is pretty much a very, what I would say is a critical topic. That brings the question: are we merely educating our children to pass exams, or are we preparing them to own their history, seek their truth, and shape a future worth of Liberia's legacy? Joining us tonight, we have on our podcast here tonight, Dr. Gbassana Tingba, a top leader and academic with indigenous knowledge, global innovation. We also have in the studio tonight We2r contributor, who is no other but Mr. Natheniel Herron, a dynamic We2r contributor, culture commentator, and advocate for educational justice. Welcome to the show, Mr. Herron. Welcome, Dr. J.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, to start with, it's true. I would like Dr. J just to kind of introduce yourself. I know you've been on the show before, and then that'll be followed by Mr. Natheniel Herron.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much again, Ayiti, for inviting me in. It's always a pleasure to share knowledge. You know, we are also passionate about our country, Liberia, and we want to be useful in any way possible to make effective change in Liberia. And my passion is in education. I am so passionate about education, and I have been in education for a while now. I don't want to put yes to it, but I've been in education for a while. I've had the opportunity to see and experience the educational system in Ghana, in Liberia, and here in the US. So I think I have a little bit more, idea when it comes to comparing and seeing like what works and how it works other places that could also work in Liberia. So I'm happy to be here on your show, and I'm happy to share ideas and see how best we can help out dear Liberia.
Thank you very much for being on the show, Doctor. We'll now pivot to our own Mr. Natheniel Herron to just give his opening remark.
I would like to extend my profound thanks and appreciation to Mr. C. Ayiti Williams for inviting me on this all-important podcast. And I feel privileged and also honored to share the screen with my own sister. Yes, Josephine. Hi, Joe. You all right?
I'm okay. Good again to see you.
Definitely. Well, we all have passion for our birth country, Liberia. And I am pretty much sure that everybody looks at Liberia from different perspectives as the way they see it. But generally, we all want to see Liberia doing good and want to see Liberia moving forward. And one of the directions in which Liberia can move forward will be through the educational system.
The president put into question.
Awesome. So, this topic is very much important. I will ask those under my voice to pay keen attention. And as they tune in to We2r Liberians Movement, where facts matter, where we do not make the news, instead we report the news, they can have an insightful contribution they can provide, an insightful contribution on this all important topic as we all strive to see Liberia moving forward. Not only Liberia, because the topic encompasses the entire continent of Africa, but we speak specifically to that of Liberia. So it's a pleasure talking to Ms. Tingba, Mrs. Tingba, and Ayiti Williams for inviting me. I'm looking forward to a beautiful and interactive show. Thank you.
I want to welcome both of you again. I think on the back end, we talked about the topic for today. We did, just you and I were talking, Mr. Natheniel Herron. We say that today's conversation is not just an intellectual exercise, it's actually a spiritual, culture, and a national imperative. As we reflect on the current state of Liberia's educational system, I want to challenge all of us now to ask the question: whose knowledge are we passing on? Whose history are we actually preserving? Whose future are we building? In the words of Malcolm X, only a fool will allow his enemy to educate his children. This is more than a warning. It is actually a call to Liberians to awaken, all Liberians to awaken from a long imposed slumber of culture, actually, so that we can build our country to make it a better place. So to go right ahead, we would then start the show actually with our first question that goes to Dr. J. Dr. J, what does it truly mean to decolonize Liberia's education system, and what will a fully decolonized curriculum look like in practice?
I guess when you talk about decolonizing the educational system in Liberia, you're referring to, like in the layman English, where our educational system is like there's this disconnect between our culture and then that of the Western world or Europe and other places. I guess that's what we mean here. So when you talk about decolonizing the educational system, you want to bring in place, like, how our children can learn from what they see or what they know. If you read about the curriculum in Liberia, and I think it was reviewed sometime in 2011 to 2016. We'll go into that later. But everything about our curriculum has always been about what is in the Western world. There isn't much focus on what our culture, what place our culture and take part in our curriculum. Like there's always this Western world kind of alignment with what our children learn. An example, if you teach in math, I'm passionate about math, so most of my examples would be along that area. If we teach in math and we want to give examples, you'll see where the problems, where they're alongside with what's in the Western world. You never see examples of what's in Liberia. If for example, you want to teach multiplication or so, you see examples like if I'm buying 20 apples, they give examples of that. What if we change apples to plums, or we change apples to mango, or something common, like simple that the children see in Liberia? Then it makes it very practical for them. So I guess what we're trying to say, how can we bring our curriculum, or how can we make our students to learn effectively by learning from what they see first before we go outside to what is happening in the other world. I'll always speak from practical example. When I was in the classroom teaching, when I go to teach at a particular school, I try to learn about the type of students, or like if it's Black Americans populated school or white populated school, you get to know your students. Then you get to know how best you can teach around that. Because when students get to learn first by what they know, then they tend to do much better. They grab the concept easily. So again, back to your question, I guess if we want, you ask whether is it possible to fully.
Yeah, fully decolonize to kind of get away from this decolonized curriculum.
I wouldn't
If
say
possible.
fully is the word that I would disagree with, because we are in a global world, so you always have to learn about other people also. But I always say let's start from in-house before we go outside. Like, let's start from our culture, because then the students or our children get a concept easily. Then we move outside to what is happening in the world. But right now, what we see or what we hear about a lot is everything is Western or European. And so it's hard for the children to really, like, put everything alongside of what they're learning. Like, how can you be talking about 3 or 4 different climate situation? For example, in the States, in Liberia, you be see books talking about winter, summer, spring, fall, when the students don't even know what that is. But what if we can bring it down to rainy and dry season, and start from there when they understand the concept before we move out to, like, what is happening in the other world. So yes, I always say we can fully, but we will partially, like, heavily start with our culture and then move on to, like, bring in the Western or the other culture.
Well, that was a powerful response. Now, I think we'll pivot, and then Mr. Natheniel Herron, that question goes to you too. What does it truly mean to decolonize Liberia's education system? And what would you say as far as being able to fully decolonize the curriculum that we have now?
It will be a daunting task, that I can tell you. To decolonize the Western educational system that has been infused into our African educational system is going to be a tough sell for all of us. However, though, it is doable. But let us look at the historicity of the European educational system being infused into our educational system during pre-colonial time or even colonial period time. They were really not interested in educating Africans. Primarily, they only introduced a minuscule form of formal education in order to train administrators, someone to do their clerical work, someone that will be able to translate. Because the Africans, for example, let's narrow it down to Liberia. Liberia at the time, during a colonial period time, we never had one national language, for example, like English. So they needed an interpreter, somebody that will be able to interpret the English. If I already hire some maybe traditionalist or some travel personality, they need somebody to interpret what the colonial master will be able to discern or tell the travelers or travel men to do. So they were really not interested in educating Black Africans. Instead, they wanted to profit from the misery of the African people. And it succeeded at a larger extent. But beyond that, we African, we gravitated to the message, we got brainwashed, we got hooked, winged, and we accepted it. And today, you and I, instead of us speaking our national language, if at all we ever have one national language, we speak in English. And I speak English more than I can even possibly speak my own tribe. So if you try to detach, or if you try to separate or disintegrate that formal Western educational system that has been infused into our own educational system, in order for us to adapt our own educational system, is going to be extremely difficult. But we can do it incrementally. For example, one of the first things we can do is to introduce a national language. One of the first things we need to do, if we're all trying to decolonize our educational system into our own making, or tailoring it into our own making, we have to, first of all, get away from, sorry to say it, English is hard. It's hard for us to get away from English. So we get away from English, and we accept one language in our country, and that language becomes the national language. For example, like what happened in Ghana. I didn't spend much time in Ghana, just periodic just short period of time. But when I was in Ghana, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's those of you that were in Ghana, you guys know the history of the country, that's fine. But Ghana has a national language. They call it Twi. Back in those days, we just thought Fantin was everything. But when you enter Ghana, they have different kinds of languages. And they have a national language they call Twi. And they all communicate in Twi, they do businesses in Twi and the rest of it. So it's one of the things that we can do in order to extrapolate ourselves from these Western or formal education to identify our own national language. Like the way the doctor said, we have to tailor our educational system that will suit us. For example, you talk about the United States. They got 4 different kinds of seasons in the United States: winter, summer, spring, and autumn. I didn't even know what the hell autumn was. AUTUMN. Just imagine. I didn't even know what atom was. I didn't know how to spell atom, but at least now I know how to spell atom. But you ask other like people say, "What is atom? And how do you spell atom?" First of all, they're going to spell it differently. Some people are going to spell it differently. But today I say atom will be spelled AUTUMN. You go teach Western education to Africa or Liberia. You tell the student, "Hey, atom." The student say, "What? What do you call atom?" So the doctor is right on point, and I'm in full agreement with her. Let us start with our own. For example, rainy season, dry season, and we can incrementally improve and make a couple of changes.
Amazing.
Yeah, I just to have just chip in there, Ms. Natheniel. Having one language, national language at this time, when I always like to, when we find a solution, we should be very, very practical. It's easy to write things down, but implementation will be difficult. So when you find a solution to think, look at how you're going to implement it. Finding one national language in Liberia right now is going to be very challenging. Even in Ghana, in your example, when I was in Ghana, I learned Fanti in school. So the language you learn in school is based on the area you're in. So those in, I think, the Accra area will learn Gan. Those in the Volta region will learn Ewe. And some of us who started school in the central region, that is the Fanti side, then we learn Fanti. It's because, it's hard to get one language for but that's a good start. If we start, and I think in Liberia, is it Pele?
Well, President Talbot, it was one of his dreams to have one national language, and he preferred Pele because, according to what I heard, Pele is a lot more easier in speaking and understanding as opposed to other tribes in the country or other languages in the country. But I don't know why it did not come to fruition. Maybe politics, but you can't really say politics, or you cannot be hell bent on politics, because at the time we had one party system. It was almost like so say one, so say all. You talk about implementation. I don't know the avatar for which it was not being implemented or successful, but we heard generally President Talbot wanted Pele to be the national language, but it just became flat-footed. So, and to your point, you say right now, when we have multi-party democracy in the country, it's going to be a tough and daunting task.
It is.
Yeah, at least back in those days, like the central government, that unitarian government that we have that was based in Monrovia, they were calling the shots, and vast majority of the people, they were ignorant. They didn't know, so it was like so say one, so say all. The population of Monrovia at the time, it was probably between, just imagine Samuel Doe time, the population of the country of Monrovia was just around 150,000. So think about Talbot and Totman. Monrovia was almost like a little strip. So maybe the population at the time probably was around 20 to 25,000. The population of Monrovia right now, pretty close to 5 million people. So it's not easy. So if you say you want to introduce Pele, the government going to be like, hell no. Why not Gil? The Mana men was saying no. Why not Mana? The Bassa men always claiming to be maybe the most popular tribe, even though history says the Pele people, they are more than the Bassa people. The Bassa people said no. We operate within pretty much close to 5 to 6 different counties. We got Montserrat County, we got Magibi County, we got Grand Bassa County, we got Riverside County, we got part of Nima County, and Bon County, the Kokoya region. So the Bassa men could claim 6 different counties. So you should make Bassa the national language. It's going to be tough. But I agree with you. Doctor, is going to be hard. I don't know, but it's
but I think but notwithstanding, we can't say because it's going to be hard, we're not going to do anything about it. What if I'm trying to address that? I would think, or I would suggest that, like the way other people do it regional, we do it like that. Instead of getting one national language, what if, like, we start from somewhere where we have every county, I think, has a dominant language or so, or even if it's not a dominant language, because we have to, I think that's the same thing we're trying to talk about here, how we can embed our culture into our educational system. So what if at the early stages in our educational system, we try introducing the use of our local language? For example, in Montserrat, which languages do they speak in? I'll start with Grand Bassa. Students in Grand Bassa start learning Bassa from school at the early ages. When we start that, then we can start from somewhere. In my mind, that's where we need to start from, where we start embedding our local languages in the early stages of education, and then encourage our people to, not just for the kids to go to school and that's it. You and myself know that we didn't even learn to speak our local dialects in school when we were growing up. I don't know about you. We spoke ours, but it wasn't very fluent, like the way it's supposed to be. But when I went to Ghana in school, we speak English. When the kids go home, they speak their local dialects at home with their parents. That's a way of us continuing our tradition, our culture, But when in Liberia, most of the time we go to school, we speak English. We come home, our parents speak English to us. So I think in terms of a starting point, I won't really say having that is just my own view. Having a national language is the best way to go, but we can start with embracing our local dialect in school from the early stages and then build on that.
Yeah, it will still be, and again, Mr. Host, I will give you a chance for you to comment. Again, it will still be difficult because I'm not sure if all of the tribes have a script. I heard about the vast script, the Bassa Bible. I used to read it. Now, how many teachers we have? The same white Europeans or white Americans, they went there and wrote the Bassa Bible.
Exactly. True.
They wrote it. So I agree with you partially when you say, well, let us do it by county or region. Elected, for instance, if you're from Grand Bassa County, let them teach Bassa in school. I don't know too many Bassa people that can read. And in fact, the Bassa men that can read and write, they will tell you they can read and write only the Dewudie. It means the Holy Bible. I can name few of them. They stay around. Like Inisman Gimmet. He right in New Jersey. He probably around 80 some more years old. The old man now. There's another guy right in Lawrenceville, Georgia. They call him Marco Boo. He reads and writes it, but not in its entirety. Few scripture then, like for example, the temptation of Jesus Christ, where devil talking on a high temple or mountain, whatever. So I understand what you're talking about, Doctor. But Josephine, the thing is, we may not have too many teachers to go and teach. So let me see if I can get a little chance for him to come.
Yeah. Let me piggyback on what the doctor was saying here. Professor Patrick Lumbumba, who was a staunch Pan-Africanist, reminds us that we are intellectually colonized. Whether it's that we dress like Europeans, we think like Europeans, we pray like Europeans. We educate our children to aspire to be like them. All that kind of stuff. So I think the way to do it, I'm the moderator, I don't want to say too much, is to first, start talking about how we can reclaim our identity, meaning that I believe strongly before we were colonized. We have our own tradition, our own culture, our way of educating our people. So what we need to do, our educational system must begin at the very root. You know what I mean? Our tribes, just like she said, dialects, custom, and spiritual worldviews. Curriculum content must reflect our collective identity, because I think that's one thing that's really missing in the country. And just think about it from anthropology to sociological history to environmental science. And I mean, Liberia has a rich cultural heritage that we ourselves need. We need to go back and dig a little bit more deeper into that. But the fact that we rely on, Western culture and education, I think is really, really impacting us. So that's just something I wanted to pitch, and maybe the doctor have.
Yeah, and then I think that is exactly what we're trying to say here. We need to start from somewhere. And how do we start? We still have a lot of historians around. We still have a lot of elders around. We can make use of them. We cannot start a change without involving all these actors. Okay, we need to use our elders, to our educational researchers, to use our elders, bring them on board, get their stories. And I think if you want to, I don't think it should be that difficult with AI and other things that seem to be corrected. That if I want to try and translate something into a language that is not written right now, there's a way to go about it. So we have to start from somewhere, because we cannot allow our rich culture to just go down the drain just like that, because we don't have nobody around. There are still people around. We need researchers to go out there, and that is where we start from. And I think
we should be, doctor. Let me ask you, doctor. Will we still be able to maintain English as a language? In other words, we will consider English to be primary or secondary. But remember now, when it comes to global trading, people look at universal language, despite the fact that we may have our own local or traditional language. But when we're interacting with people outside, what kind of language we're going to use? So will we teach both English in school and our traditional national language?
Yeah,
I think it's something we're talking about. Yeah, doctor, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, doctor.
Yes, I think it's been done in other countries. I learned Fanti and English in school in Ghana.
Okay.
I don't think I don't know, and I stand to be corrected. I don't think we're trying to say we have to get rid of everything and start anew. I don't think that's what we're trying to say.
Well, but the question the host, Mr. C. Ayiti Williams, asked was, how do we decolonize our educational system to tailor it within our own?
Yes.
So it is almost like deconstructing and reconstructing. So we deconstruct the decolonization aspect of it, the structural and colonial educational system. We completely demolish and decimate and annihilate it completely.
No. We're integrated. Yeah. Because when we talk about global competence, then we'll bring it back, because now then we're talking about the entire globe.
Yeah, but the structure of colonial educational system, it has to be decolonized first.
Yes.
We are not literally decimating it. We are decolonizing the structure of colonial educational system. And it has to be replaced. And that's the replacement we are talking about right now.
No, but what we're seeing, the question is, what will a fully decolonized curriculum look like in practice? Okay. What would it look like? So
that's what I was just about to say. That was a follow-up question.
Let's create it was a picture we're trying to create.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Tingba. Let me ask you. I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry. I really love nobility. I love that noble title. So I'm not going to call you Josephine. Just bear with me.
Oh, that's okay.
You work so hard to become. I love school. You work so hard to be a doctor, a Liberian girl, Dr. Tingba. So I'm going to call you Dr. Tingba. Forget what I Josephine name. Okay. You work hard for it.
So yes, there was a follow up to the question. in the global world today, there's no way you can stand alone. I think, like, what we want to do is, like, first allowing our students to not lose their identity. And I think that is what we're trying to say here. Like, most of our, like, it's so practical. When you go back home, I mean, all the kids want to be so like others in the Western world. I look forward. I get so excited when I see, like, new programs that I see in school. They got culture day where students are allowed to dress like their native land and everything. And you can see some mixture of, like, it's not really fitting in, but at least they started from somewhere. And so let's push them and give them all the resources. And how can we give them the resources? By going to, like, getting our elders and then our traditional leaders and other people involved in the process. We can't do this alone. I mean, you and myself don't know much about, I don't know about you, but for me, because of the war, I've been all over. I think sometimes I don't even know, like, which culture I really align myself with prominently, and it's a very common thing among a lot of us.
Yeah.
We've been to so many countries. So even us at this stage still yearning to, like, know about our own country. So let's make use of the elders, the traditional leaders. There are a lot of researchers, and Liberia is a country that is rich in all of that. We just need to find them and start from there. I think they've started, because I was reading a little bit about it, but, like, it is not, the awareness is not really out there for us to see how much they've done.
Sounds great. Sounds great. I think you guys are ahead of the game, because a lot of the questions that we have to actually now you guys started talking about it. I think
you invite that Dr. Tingba. What do you expect?
I like the fact that it's very interactive, because the question that I wanted to ask you is actually how can we reintroduce indigenous languages and philosophies in the classroom without making them feel less than English or Western ideas? How can we do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, first of all, the curriculum, and there must be a curriculum and language policy introduced. I'm looking at it from different perspective, and the doc is looking at it from different perspective.
Right.
She is looking at it from that regional perspective, comparing with that of Ghana, to say, all right, this other region, for example, they speak Twi in this region in Ghana, and they speak Fanti in this region in Ghana, and whatever, I don't know the various languages. So what Doc is saying, Liberia should be divided into segments. For example, maybe people from the southeast, like the Grand Bassa, the River says, from the coastal area, they should be able to speak one. And correct me, Doc, if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. The people from north, like the Lofa and the Bone County people, they should be able to speak one. In short, we have the Kwa speaking people in Liberia. The Kwa, where you have the Grebo, the Bassa, the Crown, the Crew, they call them the Kwa group. Maybe they can formally say, you know what, let us introduce our own language according to Doc. But I default fundamentally on that.
Okay.
Yes, and the reason why I default on it, the reason why I default on it, because I don't want things to be complicated. I'd rather make things a lot more easier than being complicated. In other words, we have one big global language that we're going to use, and we all have alluded that the language is going to be English, of which we are speaking right now. So, you want to say something? Are you there?
No. I know we're running out of time, because I know the doctor has to go. She has another meeting, and this is great. I think we're going to have to continue this.
Are you there? Why are you allowing
it? It's really beautiful, but I want us to pivot to this question real quick.
Okay, sure.
I know this is very important, Herron. Can education in Liberia be a tool? The reason why I'm saying that Liberia is a country now that has become brain dead, and the reason a lot of us, we already know it, because there's not a lot to do in the country. So people want to go outside, to get greener pastures. So the question that I have now, maybe I'll start with you, Nat. Can education in Liberia be a tool of liberation if it still trains students to aspire to leave the country rather than build the country?
No, most definitely it's obvious. Obvious answer, yes. Education can be used as a tool. It's obvious. It's obvious. And the point that you alluded to say the country is brain dead, I totally in agreement with you. Well, it means we need to reform the entire structural educational system within the country. Because right now it's not working. It's not working because of so many reasons. Every year we put out so many graduates, so many products. I don't see any tangibles. There's no research and development center. Just imagine malaria up to this time still killing people in Liberia, and we have the University of Liberia over there. What are they doing? The government needs to pump in more money in research and development. If the government does that, we see productivity. We'll be able to cure ourselves. For example, I am passionate about school as well, like Dr. Tingba. I have a school operating currently in Liberia, NIA, NYHRA, Natheniel Herron International Academy. I'm operating in District 1, Margibi County. And based upon the law, when you have schools operating, the government is supposed to help to subsidize. The government is not subsidizing. I'm doing it on my own. And it's difficult. Some of the students, when you even ask for school fees, because the parents cannot afford, they end up leaving. They say, okay, we ain't got money. The day we get money, we pay the school fee. I can't say that. And the children just say not speaking part of Bassa in the community. So the country is bring that. So this require a national agenda that we all can put together to say this is what we can do in order to move our educational system further. The government has to invest. If the government doesn't invest and leave it with private individual or private entrepreneur, it's not going to work. Just few people are going to try. They're going to produce mediocre students because they have mediocre teachers. That's the way I see it. Well, of course, it's doable.
All right. So then I want to quickly, because I know we keep talking about this from standpoint where we're just looking at the country now. Let's take it a step further and talk about global competence without losing ourselves, because a lot of times, we get into this whole we westernize that we tend not to respect where we come from. So I understand that we are all part of the global society, but global relevance does not mean cultural surrender. We're not surrendering our culture, our tradition. So it means building intercultural competence while remaining rooted in who we are is important. Now, our student must also know that, for example, this is where they were born. We have our natural resources, just like what's happening in Rwanda, for example. So my question to you now, Josephine, here, and I want you to be realistic, because your education that you have now is Western education, I would say, so to speak. Is our obsession with foreign degrees and international standards actually undermining the authenticity and power of Liberia's knowledge system?
I would say yes, and cautionally say yes, because of what we have going on in the country. Everyone wants a better and quality education. So if what we have in our country, the system has not been evaluated and restructured to meet international standard, yes, definitely everybody will fly for or be obsessed with what's happening in other places other than what's in Liberia. But I want to go back to your other question, the question before, where you asked about, I think the relevance is education, kind of like relevant to take us from where we are. I'm not sure whether that's not a word for that question. But I wanted to say that, look, education is not only about learning A, B, C, D. The main purpose of education is to help people critically think. So I might even learn maybe different degree in different field, but I can still work in another field utilizing my critical thinking ability. So if you educate correctly, that means that individual should be able to critically think in any situation. So that means that education is so important. So education is so important. If it's not important, then we can just have zombies walking around and people telling them what to do, or you give somebody a work to do and they don't even know what to do, and then you have to give them direction from beginning to end. You can't just give can you go and write a report on this? Somebody will come to you and then they want everything. What should I do? Then from there, what should I do? And that, believe me, that's what's happening in our country right now. So that using that yardstick, I always say that, well, then we have a lot of work to do, because you can get people to do things all by themselves. So yes, education is very, very important in that line. Then also bringing us back to your current question, of course, we will be obsessed with European standard or European qualification and everything, because unfortunately, that's the yardstick everybody is using now. But we cannot get away from who we are in the process. We cannot get away from who we are in the process. And I always say, in order to effectively impact education in anybody, you have to use and I'm telling you from just example or experience from teaching, I know that the generation now has a very short attention span. So if you start talking about something that they can't even picture, believe me, you're not even going to get a message across to them. So when you start talking about what they see, what they experience, then you get their attention, and then they can fully partake in whatever you're trying to get across to them.
So then I know this question is serious. I wanted to ask you the question, but I'll ask a well-read, the great Herron here. Herron, the question that I have for you, if you could redesign, and this question will go to Dr. J, because you will have to close the show. If you could redesign the Liberian educational system or education system from scratch, starting tomorrow, what would you or what would be the first three things you would change?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. The very first one, I will recall all of the well-educated Liberians that are outside the country. That's the first thing I would do. And they will be incentivized. I would incentivize those qualified Liberians. It's almost like right after the Civil War in Liberia, the United Nations decided to help the country Liberia, and it said the country was brain dead. And so they introduced the SES program, Senior Executive Program. That's why they introduced. We have some of our friends that left from here, like Aloysius Japa, John Molu, and the rest of it. And they paid them. They were looking for qualified Liberians from the diaspora that were well educated, that they could go back and help the current government, so we can emulate from the United Nations example that they have already laid, like Dr. Tingba. She has a doctorate degree. You can tell us, man, go back and redesign, help to redesign. They can have something like a conference that you put all of these people together, you pay them, even if it requires a 2 years project, do it. Call all of these people, call the locals, because you cannot only rely on people from outside of the country, because some people from outside of the country, they have left the country for a very long time, so they do not understand the whims and caprices of the country. They don't understand everything about the country. So you need to mix them up, even though they are coming with the intellectual prowess of power. But the local on the ground will tell them and say, man, a different society you're coming from over there. This is a different society. So you have to enmesh it in a way that it will be able to be blended. So one of the things we have to do, call back Liberians, like what the United Nations did when President Johnson Sirleaf became president. They asked people of Liberian descent, you want to go back? You qualify? Yeah, go back. Okay, we'll pay you $5,000. I think they were paying around $5,000 or $6,000. And so even John Molu, all the guys in the went back. So we can do the same thing. Secondly, we can have a national conference. National conference with a national agenda, how to redesign the educational system. Because if you're redesigning, you are reimaging the Liberian educational system. So you put all these people in one room. The first Banga, that is just being Banga for 2 years. They draft the document. When they draft the document, then you're going to have different committee, the review committee, because it's not everything they're going to draft. You're just going to implement it. You're going to have another committee there to review it. And once they review it, then we have our national legislature. We adapt it to say, this is the government's official policy. So these are the 3 things that I would suggest that we do in order to redesign the educational system in Liberia.
That's perfect. Dr. J, that question goes for you. Hopefully you take us home.
Yeah, so just so add to what my brother just said, of course we need professionals to come and help, but I will widen the net. I'll get a lot of other stakeholders involved in the whole process. You need parents, you need the youth, you need the traditional leaders, you need everybody. Education is everybody's business. So for a total reform, we need to get everybody on board with an input. That's one thing. 2, if we're going to reform the curriculum, you cannot just say that after we do that, get everybody involved and everything, come up with a framework of where we're going to start from. We need to do massive teachers training. So that's one thing we don't have. My sister has a school, and I don't want to put her on the stand right now, but I always ask her how many PD have you had with your teachers? She's like, oh, at the beginning of the year we have 1. I'm like, that's all. We need massive, teacher training initiative to implement whatever curriculum framework we've come up with. And then also, like we started talking in the beginning, I would definitely try to implement the use of local languages, and then we will start from younger, the younger grades. We're not going to change it to English. No. We're going to start, because that's where we get our children to appreciate who they are, to recognize their identity. Right now, when you try speaking your local dialect, people laugh at you because they think that he doesn't know how to speak English. But because we haven't really shown to our children the beauty of our culture through our local language. So I'll definitely get that in place. We also try to use digital tools, and I'm going really fast because I know we're out of time. We'll leverage radio, mobile, offline tech to support, rural, because everything we talk is possible in the cities, but what about in those villages, where you can't even get a car to go to? But those children need to be taught also. How can we reach them? So we can use these digital tools to help them see what is outside of their rural area, to help get them educated too. And then one thing I don't see a lot is monitoring and evaluation. I see that we do only 6th grade, 9th grade, and 12th grade assessment. We should do a yearly. Based on the results from these schools, we know who is teaching and who is not teaching. That's how we evaluate the schools. How can we assess? How can we monitor, the people who are teaching our children? We don't. We hear national exams, results. And lastly, something I'm very, very passionate about is to incorporate, gender equality and, female education. Because, our culture, if you are a boy and girl in the same family and there's some challenges with funding, they'll rather send the boy to school and leave the girl behind. Because our people have the mindset that, she's going to marry somebody and carry somebody need. So we've got to focus on the person who will carry the family need. But this is a broader topic that we can discuss a lot in the future. It's so interesting. And there's a lot to say. But I believe, in closing, that a lot has been doing, but not really a lot, if you get what I'm saying. We come up with really nice policy and stuff. And I know that there was a review of the curriculum in 2011 to 2016, but implementation is always the problem. So then going forward, when we want to talk about reform, we should also equally focus on the implementation stage.
Again, if you've tuned in, you're watching the We2r Liberians Movement platform, the platform that speaks to and for the masses. We have in studio tonight Dr. J as well as Mr. Natheniel Y. Herron. Could you just quickly give us a closing remark, Mr. Natheniel? We will definitely continue on this topic, hopefully next week.
Well, again, thanks for having me on this show. And I am privileged and honored to share a platform with Dr. J. You call Dr. J, I call Dr. Tingba. Reimaging Liberia's educational system is a very interesting topic, but it requires a lot of hard work. Because since the foundation of the country, we have only been used to one form of system, and that's the Western educational system. That started from colonial period time, where the structure of colonial education has permeated into our society, and to an extent that we're even forgetting our own language or our traditional language or tribal language. So in order to change that, Liberia is probably 100 and some more years, or 79, whatever number years. So for you to change that kind of a mindset or that paradigm of 100 and some more years of history into something new, it requires a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment, but it's somehow doable. We can stay and do it. We ask all well-meaning Liberians to have an input. Like for me, I said, you asked a question, you said, what are some of the 3 things you do? I say, well, we have something like we try to incentivize, to encourage our fellow Liberians in the diaspora for them to come home, and we mix them all with the locals. We look for our stakeholders, and we put them in something like a conference hall or identify one county. They can come up with a 2 years plan. They can sit and plan it, and from there it can be introduced. Then we have a review board, revision board that will review whatever project proposal they come up with or whatever policy document they come up with. Then we take it to the national legislature for adoption. So these are meaningful things that we can do in order to re-image Liberia educational system. Until we can do that, we'll continue to see ourselves getting deeper and deeper, even to an extent that we feel ashamed to wear our own traditional clothes.
I want to extend commendation to both of you for coming to share with us your thoughts. These are the kind of conversations that we need to have. This is the kind of vision we need. Not limitation, innovation with identity. I know I see people in the live feeds. That's exactly what they're talking about, identity. So let's be clear. Liberia does not need to catch up to the world. The world needs to actually catch up with Liberia. It's true. We are all descendants of kings and queens, warriors and wisdom keepers. Let us build a system where a child from Birmingham Hill or Backleyville doesn't need to erase who they are to succeed, but rather they succeed because of who they are. So to our listeners, students, educators, parents, and policymakers, ask yourself, whose story are you telling in our schools? That's a great question, right? Whose future are we building? If we do not shape the minds of our children, someone else will, and they will be taught to liberate. They will be taught to obey. Let us remember the words of Kwame Nkrumah. History teaches us that unity is strength. Let us unite, not be limited, but be creative. Let us birth a new Liberia where education is not a colonial pipeline, but a Pan-African engine of pride, purpose, and power. Until next time, it's great to have both of you again. This is the We2r Liberians Movement. Stay tuned. You have a great night. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Have a good and godly night.
It was actually a great show. I appreciate it.
It's all we want to live. Give me food, give me clothes, give me love, and give me shelter.